This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by our patrons. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, you can join them if you like. Especially, it is brought to you by SindrElf, the patron that produced this episode. If you'd like to get bonus episodes or produce an episode of your own, head on over to that website. Happy Pride Month, and Black Lives Matter. Thank you. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back, which is a platformer developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony for the PlayStation in 1997.
Naughty dog.
Ooh, bad dog.
Naughty dog, bad dog. This episode was executive produced by SindrElf.
Thank you, SindrElf.
Thank you, SindrElf. And this marks maybe the first time we've had 2 episodes in a row with the producer disclaimer.
Yeah.
Of, we like you. We appreciate your support. We didn't like the game.
Right.
And everything we say about the game is not a reflection on you. That goes for SindrElf or anyone listening. And, this is, I don't know if this is going to be quite, I feel like the depth of my dislike for this, it's like a less complex dislike than Dreamfall.
This falls short on such basic principles for me that it's kind of hard to be angry about it. Like, I'm really interested in discussing this almost like academically, because this is an important step towards like, how do you make characters move in three dimensions?
Yes.
This
to me has the feeling of this should have been the first game in the series should have been an evolutionary dead end.
Yeah.
Like, we could do a platformer this way. Oh no. Like, why did we do that? But instead it became this whole thing. And I want to point out that this was not my platformer days, right? This came out in 1997. I was 17.
Yeah.
Drowning in trim. Lifting weights.
Doing skateboard tricks. Like lifting muscle cars with my arms for strength purposes. Yes.
Like this was, so I was at this time, I was playing cool games, like, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Like
yeah, it was 1997 was a big year for that, wasn't it?
Yeah, like playing that game over and over. So that was me. If this had come out when I was in the pocket for platformers, I'm sure that I would have so much like affection for this that this might be a very different episode. But you have to realize, like, having barely touched this series and going to it at like the age of 39, after playing a lot of 3D platformers, like woof the fuck woof. Like this ended up being a really, really difficult game to have fun with. And yeah, I am also looking forward to dissecting it almost from an academic perspective, but I want to put that disclaimer that I am doing this through a lens of absolutely zero nostalgia.
Pretty much the same. By this point, if I was doing any 3D platforming or any platforming at all, it either would have been Mario 64 or I would have just been playing old Mega Man games as a kid. Like, didn't necessarily have like a PlayStation around this time. I think I got a PlayStation the winter the year this game came out, something like that. So it's not really a thing for me either. I think I played one of these maybe once at like a cousin's house and I remember being frustrated. I was like, I keep on running into stuff because I can't see it. And then,
oh yeah, well that's because it's zoomed in, like
yeah.
really way like inadvisably far.
Yeah. And it's like, this looks cool and has a lot of personality. I didn't put it in that term in those terms. Like, oh, this looks cool and like, you know, it's definitely got like a distinct look and feel. But I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I'm bad at this, and I blamed myself back in the day. And today it's like, oh yeah, because it's because of the choices they made that like that's why you cannot succeed at this. Is because they hide stuff from you.
You can. It's just like, why? To me, I kept thinking, like, why make the adjustment? Mm-hmm. You know, like I get at the time, you know, this is definitely going to be like one of those like in its time and now episodes too, because I kept thinking, if I was a 13-year-old when this came out, let's be honest, I probably still would have been drowning in trim.
Oh yeah.
But let's say I was
That's
a
fucked
nerd.
Up. Okay.
No, I know. It was me though, so it's okay. Like, I know. It's comedy week on Duckfeed.tv.
Comedy week in the cool zone.
It's comedy week in the cool zone. But if I was a 13-year-old nerd and I was playing this, I would have adjusted to all of those problems.
Yeah.
You know? And now though, I just can't help but feel like, why? Why would I change me?
Yeah.
to conform to this? Like there was no reward when I tried to meet this on its own terms. I was not rewarded in any way. And I tried really hard because I had to get through it. And I was like, you know, I had a very distinct, like, if I'm going to play through this game, like I'm not having fun. I'm going to play through this game, I'd rather have fun than not. What is the best will I can approach this with in terms of like me coming to it? How can I meet this more than halfway?
Right.
To like try to get into it. And I learned some of the movement tricks. Like I ended up watching people play it to kind of see like how are these people getting joy and expression of movement that is the hallmark of this genre.
That helped me too. Watching what other people did instinctually that I just didn't have any of the sense to do.
Well, the game doesn't teach you to like do it either. It's like in-game tutorials for this era. You know, it's not in-game tutorials because Mega Man X and stuff, like people did that, but this game doesn't do it. It doesn't try to teach you how to play it in the game. Right. But even with that, I just kept thinking like, I'm not getting anything from bringing myself to this. It helped me a little bit. It made me succeed where I might have failed, which meant less frustration and fewer deaths, but it wasn't that much more fun.
Right.
And it just ended up being a thing where I was like, why would you play this in 2020?
So, yeah. And so like there's also something, you know, when we announced that we were doing this, there were a lot of people that were like, oh, wow, that's dated and weird. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and when this came across as a choice, I think that we both kind of gravitated toward it because like, yeah, that's a big franchise we haven't done in a while. You know, we may not be in, I'd done it all. Sorry. We may not be in a minority for being like, yeah, this is just a weird time for platformers, and this doesn't make choices that are conducive to play. But also, like, a lot of people are super nostalgic for this. When the Insane trilogy, which is how we both played this.
Insane.
Yes. Did I say? Oh, yes. Insane. Yes. When the Stop Sane trilogy came out, people went gaga for it. Like everybody was really, you know, like it was Crash nostalgia month when that happened. And I felt like I was in an alternate universe a little bit. So there are people out there who are real hardcore partisans for this. And I think that there's just a certain amount of, you know, I kind of came around to this playing Dreamfall and then it happened here too, which is like some things are best played in their time and left there. Because that's where they can thrive, and I think that this might also yes,
like it like half or maybe more.
Yeah,
you know, like when you think about games, like the things that just kind of stand up as all-time classics are way rarer than the kind of things we put up with.
Yes.
You know, and that doesn't just go for like genres I don't like. That goes for genres I do like, right? Like, you know, it is. I find them playable because I'm a fucking weirdo, but it's hard to go back to like gold box games. You know, like when they released all those on GOG, I tried to play them and like, it's difficult. It's probably not worth it. Like there's something there. I had a lot of fun with those, but like, fuck man, you know, leave some stuff in the past. So we're talking about the Insane version. which is very faithful to the original. It has a couple quality of life changes, which is why I chose it. I ended up in the end kind of wishing that I had chose to do emulator so I could do save states, but que sera. The quality of life things and the graphical improvements are nice.
Yes.
In this, you play as the titular Bandicoot, Crash Bandicoot. He's anthropomorphic. He's a mascot. He's a marsupial, and he's working with his former nemesis, who is a mad scientist named Neocortex, to collect gems to help him save the world. There is a lot of gems versus crystal.
Sorry, he's collecting
like
crystals,
like a stripper fight.
Yeah,
like it's like, it's just it's really fucking incredible.
Yeah,
the way characters in this game will straight faced be like, "No, leave the crystals alone and collect the gems." What the fuck is this?
Oh, Jesus Christ, Marie, they're minerals.
Yeah. Like, it's very funny to me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, that's the level we're working at here.
Okay, all right, yeah. Sweet. But Crash is basically abducted and forced into doing this, and you've got to go through these warp rooms, which are like your series of levels, tackling 5 levels at a time. Within any room, you can do them in any order to get the 25 crystals. And note that finishing a stage does not mean you get the crystal. You can miss it, and you have to go do it again.
Yes. Part of the appeal of this game for some folk and repulsion for me is that there is so much collectathon DNA in this that even beating the level doesn't beat the level. You know, like the collect is the basic verb of this game, like the elemental verb. You have these kind of a superset of verbs you can do in order to do so, which is very limited, expanded from the first Crash. But you can jump, you can spin, like do a little Tasmanian devil spin. You can slide and you can body slam. And then these all correspond to different enemies. So these are your keys, and the enemies have locks. So an enemy with spikes on top of it can't be jumped on. An enemy with spikes on the side cannot be spun into, etc.
Yes.
That's basically the game as it's taught to you. And then the thing that we both had to kind of learn from watching YouTubers was combining moves.
Yes. So the basic one would be like doing a dash jump, right? You do the slide and then you jump right out of it. And heaven forbid you press the slide button again. Like, you know, if you're giving a fat finger it, because then you do a belly flop right into the pit.
Yep. And then start over.
Yeah, but that lets you, you know, jump a little bit further, jump a little bit higher. Like you can get a little boost if you do a spin at the top of a jump. Just like little like nudge kind of things like that. Ultimately end up making the game possible, if not, you know, just easier.
Yeah. Possible in the later stages, a little easier and more fun in the early stages, where it like is a nod, but a very slight nod towards like expressive play.
Yes.
Like the nod is like there's a mobster on trial and the crime boss is in the trial watching and needs a signal to him, you know, to not say anything, but he can't be seen doing it.
Yeah.
So he just does like the microest of nods, you know, like, you know, better than this Jimmy the Snitch. That's
Why would you hire somebody named Jimmy the Snitch?
That's a family name.
Okay.
Because they changed on Ellis Island. It used to be Del Snitch. But yeah, so it's barely this little nod towards expressive play, which is a big, as far as I can tell, like as somebody who has a real minor appreciation of 3D platformers, that's the big appeal, right? Is like you're running and jumping in ways that feel good to you.
Joy of movement.
Joy of movement is
you're jumping just because it feels good to do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's the moments of that's shown through the canopy of misery of this game were in the early stages through doing these combo things.
Yeah. But in addition to, you know, enemies that you're going to have to deal with here, you also have these crates that are here. They're filled with a bunch of different things. These ultimately end up being collectibles.
I wish it was a bunch of different things.
Well, yeah, it's mostly
4 things.
Yeah,
it's fruit masks, and then 2 different kinds of dynamite.
Yeah, well, so the different kinds of dynamite, they are functionally different enough. So like the two of them that function as traps are the TNT, which is like a time delay, gives you a little countdown if you nudge into it. And then there are crates of nitroglycerin that will explode if you even touch them, taking away part of your health or killing you.
Yes.
And
taking away one of your masks.
Doing you a hit. And they get real silly laying these around. Like nitro crates become most of the trap vocabulary.
Yes. In a weird way, this game I didn't really realize this was going to be true of Crash, but this is kind of a hardcore platformer. Mm-hmm. Like near the end, not even near the end, like starting in the middle, this ends up being like a weird kind of precision platformer, like really devious, kind of configurations.
Yeah.
A lot of times, they're used for this. Crates are also a collectible in and of themselves. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And so the kind of, hardcore aspect of this bumps up against the main design decision, the thing that you probably think of when you think of Crash Bandicoot, which is the distinctive camera angle.
Yes. Which is Crash is almost like it's like a rail platformer almost.
Yeah.
Like it's really, or like a runner, like the view is very low to the ground. And you are running away from the camera almost always in a straight line. Mm-hmm. With very, very minor variations.
Yeah. And you may be thinking, so if the camera's down low to the ground, that means that Crash himself or enemies or crates or whatever might block hazards that you're going to run into, like visually. And you would be right.
You'd be very right about that. Yeah. In addition, the camera is closer than it has any right to be.
Yeah.
There was a mania that went through like the 8 through 32-bit era where big characters were everything.
Give me bigger sprites.
Give me bigger sprite. Give me an extra large sprite. Like that's all it was supersized sprites.
Yeah.
And this is bad because you can't see as much screen real estate. Like Crash would get in the way of hazards. I could not see during and just like absolutely mind-bogglingly, the variation levels in this oftentimes involve speeding up. Reading on my Switch screen, which I know is a small screen, but reading on my Switch screen whether something was a fruit crate or a die, an instant death crate, as it's barreling towards me, that zoomed in was fucking dumb as hell.
You're not supposed to react to it. You're supposed to die to it, memorize that it's there, and then get out of the way.
That's exactly what
in advance. Yeah.
A bunch of the things are literally that. It is really trial and error gameplay.
Yeah.
Because the game hides relevant information from you.
It hides relevant information from you and punishes you for not having that information.
Yeah. It's a real Dom sub kind of very power bottomed for Crash 2. So it's a comedy week. Duckfeed.tv. So there are also levels, incredibly regrettably, that have you running towards the camera, keeping away from something that's chasing you. And there are I did like a long time ago, we played some game that had this in it, and I was like, does anybody like these? And some people were like, yeah, it switches things up. And I'm like, man, your bar has got to be more than it switches things up. Like you could do a lot of things by switching it up. Like, hey, instead of eating dinner tonight, I'll have nails. Like, switches it up. Like eat a big bowl of nails.
Yeah. I understand at the time. I understand the instinct at the time. Like, okay, we're going to have just this massive thing coming at you, very smoothly that is causing a ton of destruction. And, you're going to be running toward it, which makes the sprite bigger. Yeah. Like I can see this as like a tech demo more than anything, but in any sane world, like that's how the level would start. And then you have like a little run, and as you're doing the run up, the camera turns around behind you. But then that takes away or just don't do it.
Or the way God intended, which is the camera goes to the side.
Yes.
Because then you can see ahead of you and behind you at the same time, which is what platformers are supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's really rough. You just have an incredibly short window to see the threats before reacting to them, which is not turning this into this weird timing game, but I can't read the things well enough because the crate, like coins and like everything's a mimic. Like coins and instant death boxes look the same in the millisecond I can look.
Yeah. You know, and we're not saying it's impossible to react to the stuff in time. Like, I'd say 80% of the time you can, you know, like you get into the flow, but then they just kind of put it a fuck you because they have to make it hard.
Yeah. And it just ends up becoming kind of trial and error. It's not impossible. It was frustrating for me.
Yeah.
You know, not even like that. Like, I beat this game. It gives you a lot of lives. Like, it's very generous with lives. So like, it wasn't that hard to get through it. I just didn't have very much fun.
Yeah. It was hard to make myself want to play it.
Yes. Put away your get good hats. First of all, it's get well. Superman gets good. Second of all, it doesn't really factor into this. It wasn't like, oh, these baby gamers couldn't play Crash.
Yeah.
I was succeeding at Crash and being like, man, this is dumb. I'm dying a lot for no reason. And like, it doesn't feel good. So there are other ways that you can speed up. Often by riding a polar bear. So this takes away your ability to stop or slow down. They move pretty quickly. Sometimes you have to ride a polar bear moving towards the camera, which is like the worst of both worlds.
Yep.
And one of the things that makes this, you know, additionally difficult is that Crash is, one pump jump. Like Crash, you die in one hit, generally, and you go back to a checkpoint. Unless you get the Waku Waku mask, like what is the name of the
so
Jabu?
I almost wanted to, like in my notes I called it Aku Aku, but I think Aku Aku is like it's like a character from the first game who I was unsure of the lore, and I saw it just described as Witch Doctor mask, so that's what I called it. It is a floating like tiki mask that flies around behind you. You can stack these, like these stack up to 3. If you get 3, you turn invincible. But if you have one of these masks, it will take a hit for you, either from an enemy or from an environmental hazard, something like that, and you can continue on.
Yes, I think it is Aku Aku. Okay. And my understanding of the lore is in the first couple games, it's just a power up, and then in the later games, it becomes a spiritual advisor to Crash, like a wise spiritual advisor to Crash Bandicoot.
Ooh.
Which I think is, I'm kind of glad we didn't do one of the more lore heavy ones, but I also kind of wish that we had. It's just like, I don't know. I kept going back and forth. I'm like, oh boy. These masks are weirdly rare.
Yeah.
So this mask, there are obvious parallels with a mushroom from Mario. Note how in Mario you get a mushroom at the beginning of almost every level. Yeah. Like the game is like, hey, take a hit. We know you're learning. Yeah. This game is not that though. Like this game, they're rarer. Like they're not rare. But they are rarer.
They're almost always put either in the middle of hazards or right before hazards where you're guaranteed to take a hit.
Yeah, you're very likely to just lose it immediately. Bummer.
Yeah.
It's what's interesting with it is that it does have a adaptive difficulty with these masks.
Yes, I appreciated seeing that actually.
Yeah. And this is an early example of that. Like I'm not, I haven't done research, right? I'm not going to say it's the earliest, but it's one of the earlier ones I know of. Yeah. So if you die enough times, eventually it gives you an extra checkpoint and will give you an extra mask. So your mask per level thing may vary.
I forget if this is the series or if it was Jack and Daxter where Naughty Dog like actually named the variable like Suckitude or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah. Just like internally, like that is the bit that is flipped in order to give you the chicken hat here.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my personal gaming pet peeves, like an unforgivable sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in this game where it's like, hey, we made it so you had like 2 feet. You have 1 Bandicoot width of lead time to jump over this thing, and then I don't do it, and then you increase my suckitude.
What I want to know is
you fucking put it there, man.
Why are you hitting yourself?
Yeah, it's like Naughty Dog, the big brother. This. Like the Last of Us 2 is all going to be out giving cordyceps wedgies and shit, like doing purple nurples on the cordyceps monsters.
Yeah, so I've got no idea why they went with the 1 pump jump kind of thing, the like the 1 hit and you die thing, because this is obviously it takes a lot from Sonic, because a lot of it is like momentum based, and that is a nice thing about Sonic, which is you're going to take hits, you're going to run into traps you didn't see because you are going to be moving very fast. you can just gather rings, and as long as you're holding at least one, you can continue. It's kind of like it's kind of like they mixed and matched systems that didn't synergize with each other at all, because like you collect basically rings. Like you pick up these Wampa fruits or whatever, and you get 100 of those, you get an extra life. That's one of your main sources of, extra tries at stuff. But there's they stick with the stodgier, more punishing system.
Yeah, it made me like, I don't go way a million years back to where we did the Sonic episode. Like, I'm not a big fan of you're going to be running and then you see a trap you can't react to as a design philosophy in general. Like, I don't like it in Sonic either. But this did make me appreciate Sonic's like health system as being very generous.
Yes,
like of the era and of the genre, like that is one of the most generous. Systems that there are.
Yeah.
This does not have it. I also noticed that similarity. This has limited lives. If you run out of lives, you'll start over that whole kind of set of stages from the beginning. The game is incredibly collectible focused. So there are 25 purple crystals that are the minimum that you have to get. There is also certain criteria that varies stage to stage to gather gems for a different mad scientist. Which reveals the good ending. The bad ending, which is the one I got, is hilariously just brief and unsatisfying. And then the crates themselves act as a collectible. So one of those criteria is destroying every crate in a stage. Sometimes it's not destroying any crates in a stage. They can be kind of various things, of which there are sometimes oblique hints on loading screens, and sometimes kind of not.
Sometimes you get to the end, and there's like a little challenge room before the exit that shows you what the criteria were. And then you have to go back to it.
Yeah. A couple little hints. And then you're just getting those coins. Which are Wumpa fruits, which apparently Crash Bandicoot loves their sweet taste.
Okay. Yeah. That's generally why one would eat a fruit if you like the sweet taste. I
love the sweet taste of fruit.
Yeah. It's nature's dessert.
Banana with breakfast. It is nature's dessert. Banana oil.
I said Wampa fruits earlier. I think Wampa is a Star Wars character, a Star Wars monster. I think they're the Yetis. Yeah.
A Wampa. These are Wumpa.
Wumpa. Yeah.
With a U. Wumpa.
Kind of working into the collectible side of this is the bonus path that is in each level. I actually didn't mind these too much because they're side scrolling. Like, it's fine. But yeah, they're side scrolling like mini dungeons where you can attempt to kind of gather these collectibles without the risk of losing a life. And they're short little challenges.
Yep. And they're also totally optional if you're not getting all the crates, which I like. This it does become side scrolling, which I like more. It does become that 2.5D side scrolling.
Yeah. It turns into like a little Big Planet kind of thing.
Yeah, there is an imprecision that is inherent in that.
Yeah.
Pandemonium style imprecision that's no fun. Each level also has what's known as the death path, which can only be reached if you did not die before getting to that platform. And sometimes this is just more collectibles, which are for more of those gems.
Yeah.
Each warp room concludes with a boss fight. So each 5 levels, there's a boss, which tend to be little kind of puzzle bosses, a little bit like little pattern.
Yeah,
pattern-based puzzle.
They feel like later 3D Mario boss fights, where it's figure out this trick and then do it 3 times. They add complications after each phase, but it's kind of that thing.
Yeah. So it seems like a good time to chat about this here. One of the big things with this game in general, I know we're going to work into the development, but I mostly played in for me in the bosses. Like, this is colorful and everything. This felt so, once I read about the development, it confirmed a lot of how weird and cynical this felt to me. And it felt cynical to me in terms of the first time I noticed it was looking at the enemy design, which tend to be just like, what if an animal, right? Like in one level, there's just possums. And they're just possums. They walk back and forth, and it's like, what if a possum, right? Like a deadly possum touches you, you get possumed, and you die. It's not an awesome possum, just a regular possum. But these enemies, these bosses feel like designing Poochie to me. Like every single one of them has this weird kind of gross, like British lack of personality. And by when I say that, I mean specifically like Banjo-Kazooie, like what if a thing had googly eyes?
Yeah, it feels like specifically like a rare style thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like rare style is specifically, rather than saying British, I should say rare style. Rare style, like just, whoa, you know, everything is like a pita pit, you know, lettuce. And I just like the lack of personality in this game. I wish I could have recorded the noise I made once I realized that we were actually going to cycle through the same 5 different biomes, as opposed to having different ones. I was like, oh, I'm on the river again, and it looks exactly the same. The noise I made about, like, I was just like, with the fucking just piranha plants. You know, like eventually they introduced some other tricks, but I think that there is this weird, incredible dearth of personality and weirdness to this. Like, it feels like somebody looked at, you know, Mario weirdness with Mario's enemies and tried to emulate it and just failed at it. Like, there's not a lot of character to these enemies and obstacles. And
it's like a real superficial weirdness. And, you know, I think that in trying to design these, you know, specifically with the bosses, maybe with some of the enemies, it was kind of like they were making side characters for the eventual, you know, Crash Bandicoot animated series.
Yeah.
You know,
or Kart Racer, which they actually did. And it's pretty decent. Yeah. So it just, it has that, like, you know, Sonic shitty friends, disgruntled goat, you know, kind of feel to it in a way that just felt very painfully generic to me. Like, you know, the very first level when it's just like, oh, like, you know, here's an armadillo, you know, walking back and forth. What if a critter? Like, it just, it sucked. I was not into any of the creatures I was looking at in this, and I do not like the personality or steez of any of the characters, really. Yeah. You know, I really, really struggle with that. So the bosses, while being mechanically okay, I found pretty bland.
Pretty hollow and unsatisfying. Yeah, it's a real superficial weirdness. Like, I get what they were trying to do, like specifically with just the way, like, the way a frame presents to you. Like, there are no 90-degree angles in this. It's like it's the Haunting of Hill House, you know? Yeah. Like, and everything is colorful and kind of just super deformed and stuff like that. But ultimately, it doesn't add up to anything that says anything about the characters or what they're like, what you're going to do when you fight them. You know.
Well, and the weirdness, like, is not that super deformed colorfulness in the context of we're setting out to intentionally create a mascot platformer is the opposite of what they could do. Like this, despite so much Sonic steez, like even down to the, you know, animals mixed with technology. What if this was photorealistic? What if you did all of the same things, but it was a photorealistic Bandicoot, and then a, you know, photorealistic possums and stuff like that? Like, that'd be 1,000 times weirder and cooler. You know, instead though, it just, like, you know, this started off as a Sonic, like, kind of homage or, you know, attempt to do a Sonic game. And it has so much fucking Sonic energy. Yeah. That, like, drives me nuts. Like, so they, as we, you know, they had this contract signed with Sony for 3 games. And the whole idea was to update popular kind of 16-bit mascot games. They called it Sonic's Ass Game because you constantly looked at the main character's ass, and it wasn't Sonic Ass Collection from Arcane Kids. So
yeah, there's very little impreg in this one. But yeah, they call it Sonic's Ass Game. What's that?
Gotta get all the gems to get that ending, to get the impreg ending.
Oh, geez.
Sonic gives birth to his sister. And her laptop.
But yeah, it's funny that they called it that because it says, oh, we settled on this camera angle super early on. Yeah. And this is before the development of the first Crash. I felt like including notes about Crash as a character, you know, but kind of mostly to bring in this thing. When you mentioned Poochie, I immediately did Poochie groans because the original name for Crash was Willy the Wombat. Okay. Like, okay. Yeah. Willy the Wombat. Like, that's, like, I don't know if it's just because I'm used to hearing Crash Bandicoot and that's why Crash Bandicoot sounds better than Willy the Wombat, but whatever. Sony said, okay, we see your wombat and Willie is fine, but we need to Rostify it by about 10% or so. So why don't we call him Wes, Wuzzles, or Wizzy the Wombat?
Wizzy. Wizzy the Wombat. No.
Sony.
No.
Sony.
I mean, but also Willie the Wombat sucks ass too.
Yeah.
this is also through the floor for sucking ass. Like,
and so like Willie the Wombat only is not terrible because it is in the notes next to Wes or Wuzzles.
Yeah, Wes the non-discriminate. We don't even know what Wes is. So this is the mascot for Sony. This feels like to me the first of the last wave of the mascot things. Like, yes, there's Blinks and he will be recognized, but it was like this was the last gasp of the golden age of like, we got to have a mascot. And he ended up being the mascot for PlayStation, which meant a bunch of intolerable commercials with like a failed theater student in a Crash costume yelling at Nintendo HQ that I saw 1,000 times growing up, and it's just like, fuck this.
Yeah,
like I'm 17 and fuck this.
It's pretty bad. Yeah, no, just he became part of this marketing apparatus, and it's interesting because Crash is third party, like Sony didn't develop it. So that would ultimately lead to some weirdness when Crash would leave Sony first party and go multi-platform a little bit. But just the idea, like, man, could you imagine if that was still going on today? Like, if the
PlayStation 4 is like Wes the the Wombat, Wes the Wallaby for the PlayStation 4.
So bad.
It's like Knack. Knack.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So
part of this too, like we're talking about this, and this is going to be different than some people because there is an irony appreciation for this stuff, especially for like Knack, but even for this kind of thing, even for Crash, like he wears jorts. He only wears jorts. Like he's like, the kind of guy who you'd call your manager if he came into the gas station you're working at. Like, what do I do? The jorts guy's back. I don't have any of that ironic appreciation.
No. This is the
stuff.
I can't get down with the Shrek angle of this.
Exactly. There's a Shrek angle to it that is very popular in online discourse. There's a weird, irony fuck kind of appreciation angle to this kind of jorts wearing buffoon that I cannot countenance. I have no tolerance or appreciation or affection for this kind of earnest stupidity from the 90s.
I cannot sanction this buffoonery.
Yeah, absolutely not. Will not, cannot. So,
yeah. So kind of another thing from the first, from the development of the first game that influenced this as well. The crates were something that they added because of technical limitations. They couldn't fit a lot of enemies on the screen at the same time, and a huge stretches of the levels were really boring. So they added the crates to add interest to the individual levels.
Yep. If you look at development details about Crash 2, there's mostly technical.
Yeah.
Finding new ways to kind of render water and such like that, like making it look better. The team had these huge ambitions to revamp the controls. And they got pretty far in this. I was reading about this last night. In giving him new moves, and then also the ability to turn the camera 180 so you can switch which way you're going.
Yeah.
But the development time got crunched down and they did not have time to do it.
Yeah, they only had a year to make the game.
Yeah.
The music in this, I think, is good. It's
generally pretty good.
Yeah.
Like give Mark Mothersbaugh the word Australia and say go to town.
Yep. Yeah.
Like
you're just like, but yeah, I listened to it. I was like, man, that sounds like Mark Mothersbaugh did this. Oh yeah, he totally did. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And the level design in this got a last minute sweetening past when the lead designer of Gex Enter the Gecko joined the team. Dan Airy.
Get the Gex guy on the case. He's mascot royalty.
He's remember the wolf from Pulp Fiction? He's like that, but for platformers. We call him in to solve problems.
We call him the Gecko. Sit back, relax your ass, and the Gecko will be there to straighten it out shortly. The gecko. That's all you had to say. Gex is going to enter this crime scene.
How is it possible that we've done almost like 500 episodes of Abject Suffering, but we've not covered a single fucking Gex game? Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's all a big blind spot for me because I noped the shit out of this like pretty quick. And I'm not trying to brag. I had, probably have like 60 hours in Arrow the Acrobat as a kid, but like, but by the time it became 32-bit, I was like, this is dumb as hell. I'm out. Yeah. I'm not going to Gex. Give me Robocod, or give me death. Put that on the sign.
Oh, man.
Give me Robocod or give me death. So at the last minute, this death animation that left Crash's head and feet, like a cartoon, like getting smashed by a safe or whatever, was cut because it resembled the work of a Japanese serial killer who was active at the time.
Fucking grim.
Who would cut out people's leave them with just their head and their feet.
Mm-hmm.
The torso taker struck again.
No middle sliders.
Yeah, no middle sliders, no middle anything.
Yeah.
Which is just bonkers. They did leave in. It's funny because they did leave in the death animation for drowning, which is just him floating in your pool. Which I really like.
Damn it, a Bandicoot's in the pool again.
Yeah. Oh, geez, a Bandicoot died in my pool.
You got to go.
Guys, we can't go swimming.
You got to go scoop him out before he gets pulled into the filter.
Yeah. So we're not gonna be able to get that Bandicoot hair out of there. Is he sentient? I don't think so. Like he trusts the scientist again. I don't think he clears the bar for sentience.
No,
but at the same time, we don't want to clean up all the blood and bone from
right
when he gets stuck in the drain.
You're gonna get flies, and then you're gonna get mosquitoes. You basically, a Bandicoot in the pool is gonna start an ecosystem, and that's not what you want.
You don't want to create a horrible soup. Like
stew the Bandicoot.
You get a Bandicoot, you got a stew going. Let's get a Bandicoot in the pool.
I will say I've got a little bit of a soft spot for the death animations in this. I think that those are cute and inventive.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah. Like I think this is an example of a thing that happened a lot with Dreamfall, where things that I would ordinarily like, I don't like because the game burned up all my goodwill. Like, it's very hard for me to appreciate anything if I'm in a state of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And this game put me in a state of frustration enough, vacillating wildly between frustration and boredom, and then brief moments of fun, that it was just very hard for me to turn the other cheek.
Yeah. Yep. I would feel bad if I didn't admit it, though, because it did bring me small joy. And, in the interest of fairness, Gary, I'm a reasonable person.
Yeah.
I just want people to know how enlightened I am.
Yeah. Both sides. So this game was well regarded by critics and players as a step up from the first game, sold like gangbusters. But it's like, it was well regarded by critics as a step up, but it wasn't well regarded in general. Like, weirdly enough, again, the way that I kept saying this, like, feels like it should be an evolutionary dead end. If you read reviews at the time, critics were like, yeah, it's really hard to sight read this. It's tons of trial and error. The camera's too pushed in. Like, they have all the same problems we have. It just, they kept going with it.
Yeah.
Which is part of why this feels so cynical to me. Like, it feels like, oh, it sold well. It does not matter if we're making good art. It just sold well.
Yeah.
Like the Sarge's Heroes games or something like that.
Right. Yeah. So the series would continue long after it should have stopped. Crash 3 Warped came out pretty soon after this, and is considered to be, like, it kind of is neck and neck with this for the best in the series. A lot of people really like Crash 3. And then after that, and they did Crash Bash, and they did like a kart racer. After that, though, it kind of got handed off to a let's say a cascading series of third-party developers with less and less prestige each time. And also this tank, like, Crash killed 2 studios.
Yeah.
Before it ultimately wound down, before they put it on ice to bring it back for the nostalgia crowd.
Yep. He needed to be stopped. And he was briefly, but then nostalgia came out, and he did.
Right.
So he came back with that Insane trilogy, which updated the 3 games for modern systems. Does make them look nicer. That version does look nice.
Yeah.
For what it is. It happened around the same time as the Spyro the Dragon.
Yes.
Resurgence, and those games have some weird shared DNA.
Well, they eventually did crossovers. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they had to, because there was a frothing fan demand for it, which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like I was reading about like this, where people were just like, "Oh my fucking God, it would be so cool if Crash Bandicoots met Spyro the Dragon." And I'm like, that sentence, man. Like, can you imagine? Like, here I'm to pick up your daughter for prom. Also, I think it'd be incredibly cool if Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon just met. They don't have to fight or anything. I just want them to meet. Like, what do you do with that?
What if Penny met a dinosaur?
Yeah. Up in heaven, Jimmy, Keith Moon, Crash Bandicoot, they're all jamming. What kind of band would they have?
Yeah, no, they absolutely had to before Spyro. I mean, it's just the arc of that turning into the Skylanders, like Spyro becoming an incredibly minor part of his own franchise, as they decided, as the developer of Star Control 2 said, "Oh, we have toys to sell, so Spyro, you gotta step the fuck back."
Yeah, step down, Spyro. It's time for this like generic ass looking dragon. It was a bleak time. 32-bit era.
Yeah.
And
it's like in the PS2 doldrums is when all that shit happened.
Oh, yeah, right.
PS2, PS3. Like they tried to keep it going.
Yeah, no. We're entering into a nostalgia phase for all that stuff, and it makes me incredibly sad. It's bleak. Yeah. Not everything is worth nostalgia. Let's get into it.
So there is a story to this. I opted when I put this together, instead of like trying to sum up when the little bits were laid out over the course of the game. Like, let's just kind of like summarize it all here before we talk about the levels, because like literally it has nothing to do with what you're doing in the stages. It is just a talking head that expositions to you. So it makes more sense to do this here, because you've got like, you're in the warp rooms, and then Cortex appears through a hologram and like either taunts you or praises you, and urges you to continue. Yeah. Yes.
Cortex. Who voices Cortex? Isn't it like Clancy Brown?
I can't remember. I don't know.
I think it's Clancy Brown, which is pretty cool. That's a good. Cortex. I'm sorry. I'm just going to do this because I gotta know, because it's kind of fun. Clancy Brown, at least at one point, did him. So it's a charismatic performance of a character that I don't have any real affection for.
Right. Oh yeah, that is Clancy Brown, isn't it?
Yeah. So the game opens after the defeat of Cortex in the first game. He falls into this cavern and discovers purple power crystals, very similar to the end of the Sonic movie. And he uses these with his sidekick, Dr. N-Jin, which that's a clever, I don't know if you picked that up, but engine.
What?
Like a car engine. Yeah. Insane.
Yeah.
And they create a space station called Cortex Vortex. And while he's doing this, he grabs Crash, who's hanging out with his sister. There's also a lot of fan outcry about Crash's girlfriend disappearing, who is the lady Tawny.
Okay, that was the Tawny or Tanya, something like that. Yeah, no. So the girlfriend disappeared. There are conflicting reports on that. The one that seems to be reported the most, the one that I saw, was that Sony of Japan was uncomfortable having Tawny being as sexy as she was. So they ended up replacing her.
Doesn't sound like Sony of Japan.
No, it doesn't.
Like, I just, And then so they replace it with a sister.
Yeah.
As if people online are not going to make them fuck.
Nice little Maginot line you built there.
Yeah, and just really imagining the nice zero results I'll get if I put, Crash and Coco / fiction.
Yeah.
So he's hanging out with his sister Coco, who apparently has normal intelligence and can operate a computer and stuff.
Yeah.
And Cortex tells Crash that the planets are aligning. Something terrible is going to happen to Earth if Crash doesn't gather the 25 crystals.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and you gather crystals. Cortex pops in, either like praising you or scorning you. It's clear that he's the bad guy, even if you didn't read the title of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then every once in a while, Coco cuts in through the transmission to kind of say that the crystals are powering a machine the Cortex will use to mind control the entire Earth. But she keeps getting cut off. Like a lot of the plot moves forward through like a bad Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah.
In this,
Yeah, but just at the end, you destroy Cortex and his little Igor and Jin. That kills me. Yeah, that kills me that you figured that out.
It's a good joke.
Yeah,
I mean, credit, game recognized game.
I didn't think anybody would top miles per hour. But here we are. There's another scientist who I never actually encountered, so I didn't know this was a thing. There's a scientist named Embryo, which is weird because it should be Embryo, but they had to keep it as an N to keep with the theme name or whatever. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. But he appears and says, "Hey, stop working for Cortex. Work with me and gather the colored gems instead." And you get those by by fulfilling certain criteria or whatever. You get the good ending by getting all 25 of the power crystals. Or sorry, you get the regular ending, bad ending by getting the power crystals. You get the good ending by getting all the colored gems and working with Embryo.
Yeah, I watched this online. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So if you think I got all the colored gems in this,
yeah.
But I did watch this guy online. Would it surprise you to know that he's a scientist with a big head and a silly voice? Who yells in a kind of a stock cartoon voice.
No. Let me pop my eyes back into their sockets because they popped out in utter surprise.
Yeah. And that is indeed the story. The episode's going to be a little bit weird because we're not going to, and then you run into this kind of hole in the ground. We're going to go through the levels, introduce new things mostly, in kind of typical platformer fashion. I think that we got most of our kind of generalities, out of this early on, but there's a lot of like crash ass levels.
Yes. Yeah. So let's do it. And you can do any of these 5, like any of the warp stages in any order. Like I literally just, when I was making notes, I just went from left to right. As you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're roughly laid out that way in terms of ascending difficulty.
Yeah.
So she started off in Warp Room 1. And sometimes these stages have pun names.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're just called Turtle Woods, which is the woods with turtles. Only some turtles, primarily armadillos, but woods with some turtles.
Yes. Yeah. The turtles kind of make their appearance at the end. Yeah. So this is like your Green Hill Zone. Like there is not an awful lot of pitfalls here. It's mostly safe ground. It's kind of demonstrating what some of the different blocks are and things like that. Some of them really slow you down, like the bouncy ones, like the cage is full of the Wumpa fruit. That you gotta jump on several times. Yeah.
Well, they slow you down if you want to get all the coins or you want to break all the boxes.
Yes.
Which started for me early on. Like there is an inherent joy to collecting a coin. But at some point, when it's all coins and it's not New Mario Brothers 2, I just kind of started ignoring these things. I had enough lives.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. They're armadillo level enemies who have no spikes on either side, so you can jump on them or spin on them. And there are turtle enemies that have spikes on the side, so you can't slide them. You have to jump on them.
Yeah.
And then there are these weird little trap pits that you fall into that a series of moles pop out of that you have to jump on until eventually a mushroom pops up for you to bounce out of.
Yeah. It's weird how even when you come back to this biome, those pits go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stops being a thing, the little arena battles. And the purple crystal, the main crystal you're going to get as opposed to the gem is very, right on the critical path here. as just kind of a blanket statement as well, we're not going to talk about all the ways you get the alternate gems.
No.
In this, again, I watched 100% speed run of this to see what they were. And it's get all the boxes or go down a certain path. And in one level, it's don't get all the boxes. So we're not going to chat about those. They're not that interesting in terms of talking about the level design. Like there are things that the levels do to make that difficult.
Yeah.
So in the level where it's like, don't get any boxes to get the gem, you can't get the checkmark box. That counts. You can't get the Aku Aku mask box.
Right.
So it is more challenging to get the thing, but as is, kind of critical path, does not make that big of a difference.
Yes.
When talking about the geometry of the level.
Right. We go to a new biome with Snow Go.
No go.
Yeah. This is kind of the Arctic biome here. This starts you out next to 3 crates. You have your mask, you've got your nitro, and you've got the TNT. This will help you if you did not carry this knowledge over from the first game, understand the difference between nitro crates and TNT crates. I didn't levy this complaint in the generalities, and I should have. But specifically, like jumping over crates ended up being a thing that would get me, specifically nitro crates, because there are 2 things that work against you. First, if you are running away from the camera, it is very, very difficult to determine the distance between things. Like, you're just going to run into a crate when you thought you had another couple of crash widths to go. Additionally, like Crash's jump arc, if you are moving when you jump, would more often than not for me take me right into the corner of these things, making it so I would have to stop and then jump up high and almost lob crash over the nitro. Otherwise I would just run and jump right into the side of the things.
It's a huge problem later in the game. And to me, that is a fundamental, like this is an exaggerated version, but this is the problem I have with 3D platformers.
Yeah.
Is the inability to quickly and precisely judge distances and arcs and such like that. Like it is just a harder perspective. And this is super challenge mode for that. This is a worse version of it than a more competent 3D platformer.
It makes me wonder if if the genre was created by somebody who lost sight in one eye and wanted to punish everybody else with depth perception. Like, you can tell the distance between things. Now, welcome to my world. Yeah.
I had that same problem a lot. The other thing that would happen to me a lot because of the 2.5D stuff when you go side scrolling is I would land and then would just slide into the side of an enemy. Like the enemy would be on the platform I was going for. Yeah. They'd be walking back and forth on a very short cycle. I can't really judge my jump arc specifically. Nor the hitboxes of everything. Yeah. Because it's 3D. So I would land right next to a guy and then he would, overlap me for an absolute millisecond. Yeah. And those became very tricky as well. So I had a similar thing with just kind of barely grazing hazards.
Yeah.
So this introduces penguin enemies that slide back and forth in a pattern. Often just on the edges of bottomless pits. Yeah. So you have to either deal with them or run past them. And it introduces ice. Crash has very hostile ice physics.
Yes.
Really, really difficult. Very, very aggressive ice physics. And they right away they basically put nitro on the ice.
Yeah. So you have to chart a path.
Ice field.
Chart a path, doing a slalom between them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something about the pits, specifically the pits that extend all the way across your field of play. They are not of uniform distance between them. Like it is not a uniform width. Yeah. So like you would often have to as you are running, sometimes with something chasing you, judge like what parts of the geometry are closest to each other. Otherwise, if you did not know to do a dash and a jump, you would just fall short when it would feel like you were making the jump at the last possible moment. Maybe even making the jump with like the coyote time. Like, nope, you still fell short because like things are just imprecisely lined up.
It's really weird the way they do the jagged edges of pits in this. That was actually, again, we're kind of doing this first world where they're introducing all the ideas. We're going to get some generalities out that we had neglected to mention. being able to ignore that consideration was the biggest upgrade that learning how to like do the slide dash, like dash jump gave me, because I fucking hated that. Like during the first time I noticed that was the thing chasing me, crash dash level, where I would just jump over a pit and would just fall on the other end. I was like, what the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah, what did I do wrong? I jumped at the last moment.
Yeah, what on earth? And then looking, I'm like, oh, surely this is just an aesthetic thing. There's not actually a difference in the hitboxes of this pit with the jagged edge. No, there definitely is. And almost immediately they start making you having to like change in air, to like jump from one side and then kind of scoot over to another side.
Yeah.
In like a real cartoony way. And it's hostile.
Yeah.
The underground area in Snowgo with the side scrolling has these piston traps that pop down every once in a while. No big deal. Here will later become more annoying.
Yes, when they're paired up with a different kind of piston.
Yes.
Yeah. Hang 8 takes you to kind of this forest ruins river biome. You are over water and you're platforming on these narrow walkways and these temporary platforms that only provide you momentary refuge before they sink.
Yes. And there are piranha plants. They lunge if you get too close. You have to leap on them from a distance, which is difficult because of 3D platforming things. And then you get on a sewer surfing. You get on a jet-powered surfboard. For these segments, these aren't really auto-scrolling. They just control differently.
You can slow down. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, they control really strangely. It's pretty hard to know exactly what's happening. Like if you turn to the right, I kept expecting to continue to be pointed forward, but just kind of like a racing game or like, wave race, but instead you go 90 degrees to the right. It's actually controls closer to you do on the ground than you would expect with just different momentum.
Yeah. Takes you longer to stop, really takes you longer to pick up. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really weird because like these segments, it feels like, oh, I'm sewer surfing. So I should be moving faster. It wasn't really the case, actually.
No. It's time for a caution. As soon as you get on a surfboard, it's time for caution.
When you're on a rocket surfboard, you got to really remember safety down.
Yeah, safety first. On the rocket surfboard.
Yeah.
That my idiot Bandicoot has jumped onto. And it ends with some kind of timed hippo platforming. Like you jump on the backs of hippos, eventually they sink. So you have to kind of time it out.
Yes.
Again, like large portions of this you can kind of skip if you use the movement tricks.
Yeah. Yep. We get to the forest biome again with the pits. This is where they introduce more death drops. So like if Turtle Woods was the Green Hill Zone, this is the version of Green Hill Zone that is not trying to coddle you.
Yes. Yeah. Dark Green Hill Zone. So this is the first level that has branching paths, which I did not realize were a thing in Crash. I thought you were always on a track, and I got kind of excited for a moment because I was like, oh, like exploration.
Yeah.
The way they express this idea is so incredibly limited though. Because it has a branching path. Like I think this one just has one. But you can pick the wrong one. Like the gem is on one of the paths. Where's the puzzle there? Like what is the information I had to make a choice?
Wait, you went left instead of right? You stupid piece of shit.
Suckitude. Better turn that up to 1. Like fuck off, devs. Like this is like, it's so clearly like not good design to just be like, what am I holding? Which hand do I have the key in?
Right. Tell me what number I'm thinking of.
Yeah, what do I have in my pocket? Like it's just very frustrating. Like going down the wrong path and having to do it again was just like, boy, in my nearly 10 years of doing this shit, like it's very obvious to me that you shouldn't do this. And then there are also these new mammal kind of razorback kind of warthog looking dealies that have razors on their backs. Oh no, these aren't the warthogs. These are the guys with the this is where they introduced the big sonic steeds where things are half mechanical. These are the guys with the buzzsaws on their back.
Yeah. Yep. Just gotta get into them from the side, learning that. I mean, we gotta get to Crash Dash because this is where you're running away from a boulder, doing like
and as a big Ripperoo stan, I'm fucking salivating in anticipation. I can't wait to cape for Ripperoo.
Yeah.
But yeah, Crash Dash. So this is the forest biome again, which, again, audible groan that they reused the biome for me. And this is your first run towards the screen level being chased by a boulder. And these suck. There are new hazards in these. There are landmines, which weirdly don't kill you.
Yeah, they just kind of slow you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Electric gates you have to slide under. Pits.
No, you don't have the electric gates you have to slide under just yet. That comes later.
You just avoid these.
Yeah, these are the ones you have to swallow them around.
Yeah, swallow them. And then pits, and then there are little boost tiles. One of my understandings is that the boost tiles get this little signal squares. I think that is an Insane Trilogy innovation.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, my understanding was in the original game they just appeared. Here though, you get little like ellipses.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I thought, oh, that's good design. They signal what's coming up. That couldn't possibly be something they did in the PlayStation era.
Yeah. And you run away, and they're like, it's a weird thing where all these levels, take 90 seconds to beat, 2 minutes to beat, but they feel so long because you get to the end of them, and then just another fucking boulder comes. Like you get to these little overhangs. Yeah. Where the boulder stops, and then somebody has put another boulder up there to chase you. Like, I understand video games have stages that are very abstract. It was very hard to have an understanding of like what was even happening. Like, where am I and what even is this?
Yeah.
I guess these are traps designed by someone.
Yeah.
Not Cortex. Because and my understanding is that Cortex came from the lab that designed all the evil animals and also increased the intelligence of Crash. And that's his origin.
But not too much.
Certainly not too much. Like, even though I was reading the TV tropes for it, and they were like quiet genius or like some trope about how he's actually very smart. and then the text of it was like, Crash exhibits acrobatics, high strength, and like basically listed his superpowers on the back of his trading card. It's like, man, TV tropes.
Hidden depths can jump real good.
Yeah, like still waters jump high. But yeah, we talked about running towards the camera and how these levels are bad.
You're right.
They get worse. And then we get our first boss, which is my boy, Ripperoo.
The one,
who's
the only.
Not actually my boy.
Yeah.
Who's a kangaroo who is a serial killer clown. Who looks like exactly like one of the weasels from Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Like the movie one. That's what he made me think of, like the one laughing one.
Yeah. But the joke is he's a kangaroo, but he bounces around on a pogo stick.
He's a cyborg kangaroo. And he initially leaves, goes around in his grid, leaving TNT crates behind him. So you basically have to kind of follow him. Those TNT crates will immediately start to count down. You have to find the safe spot to stand in, like where he's not going. He does this weirdly twice before every time you can hit him. And then eventually, you have to hit him 3 times. Eventually, he does this with nitro boxes, which means that you have to just really stay away from him and kind of anticipate the corner.
Yeah.
He'll be in, or he won't be in, rather.
Yeah.
And just like kind of judge the explosion distance and stay away from that.
Yeah. But he leaves the TNT ones around. He can deal with that. But when he switches to nitro, like he gets frustrated by not hitting you. So you got to bring out the big guns. When he starts doing the nitro, he'll leave a bunch of those, and then the last one will blow him up, and that makes him vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really have a lot of respect for the Heath Ledger Ripperoo.
He really elevated it, I think.
Yeah, he really elevated the Ripperoo role. And the Suicide Squad Ripperoo was no good.
No. It took it too far.
So this moves on to stage 2. We're in Snowbiz, snow biome. Again, audible groan that we're just going to go through these 5 biomes. Weirdly, there is one more, but they wait quite a while to introduce it.
Yeah,
or 2 more. Actually.
Yeah, there are a couple. Yeah,
there are 2 more, but it's real slow trickle.
Yeah, this one starts out with you side-scrolling, substantially tougher this time. They start really using the ice in front of more traps. So you end up needing to, really understand the timing of the pistons that are coming down and slide past the stuff. Otherwise, you get smooshed.
Yep. Yeah. Lots of smooshing happening to me. There are also these porcupine enemies that puff out their quills and dash at you. if they see you, and you have to wait for them to calm down before hitting them, or just bypass them.
Right.
Jump over them.
Yeah. They will often like work these into like little stealth scenario kind of things. Like they will not see you past a crate. So you've got to wait until they are moving away from you to get down and make a dash for them, or else they will turn hostile on you. Yeah.
Yep.
But this ends with a normal 3D running away from the camera stretch where you've got these big rolling stone wheels that are moving kind of left and right on a half pipe almost. They end up working these out to with really weird. They combine them together with weird phases that you have to account for to get the to run through
perpetual
safely.
motion wheels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is called Air Crash, which there's a little bit of a minor controversy with this game because on the front of it you have a jetpack, and I was thinking Air Crash, time for the air. Time for jetpack. The jetpack does not happen until the very end of the game,
right?
For two stages. This is in the jungle ruins. Very little air going on.
Yeah.
There are more. It's kind of trickier. It's an elevation. More temporary stops. More Venus flytrap enemies. And it ends with this walkway where it's alternating nitro blocks and these anglerfish enemies that kind of arc through, which I guess are the air part of this.
Maybe.
So it's kind of like a red light, green light a little bit, alternating with a normal jumping challenge and kind of timing those out. It is fine.
Yeah. What is not fine is Barrett. Not the Final Fantasy VII characters. Bear It. Like Grin and Bear It. Yeah, this is your first bear riding stage. There's a little bear waiting outside the arena for this. If you jump on him, he will give you 10 lives.
So that's so that's a little trick for this if you want to get those extra lives. I know that this is already gonna be a fairly short episode, and I'm doing my best to slow it down for some reason. I don't know why. I had to camp out for just a second on the look that Crash gives the camera when he sees the bear. Did you notice that, dude?
No, I didn't. What?
You come into the stage, the bear is there. You walk forward until Crash looks over his shoulder and does the uncleest eyebrow raise I've ever seen in my fucking life. Just doink doink. Ooga.
This is gonna get weird.
Jumps on the bear. It's a really funny animation. He's like, yeah.
Get on, ride him, Bodie.
It's so sinister. I don't know. It's very, I try not to turn everything into a sex joke, but it does really look like he's gonna have sex with the bear.
There's no other valid read of this situation.
That is what he looked like. Hey, I'm a pig and slop. While the cat's away, the mouse will play. It is the biggest shit-eating grin that I've ever seen. It's really good. It's very funny. It happens every time he jumps on. So whenever this fucking bear,
it's a tiny bear too. It's it's smaller than Crash is.
Oh yeah, the scoliosis on this bear, the spine disease this bear is going to end up with from this jorts wielding moron.
I like he's wielding them. He's not girded in them. My jorts are my sword and my shield.
It's like the old monk. The jorts are actually Crash Bandicoot.
This poor marsupial is carrying a grim passenger.
So these are the auto scrollers, the sped up auto scrollers where the bear can't stop. You can move left and right. You make the bear dash. You can't really slow it down very much, and you can jump. And this is incredibly memorization based.
Yeah.
Really, really,
and something that complicates it, which again, this would have been impressive back in the day because so many things were kind of fixed to a grid, right? You would be running down a hallway and you would see the stuff coming at you. They obscure the draw distance by having the path that you're going to be going down kind of wind left and right. And that is that is how they delay you getting the information that you need about where you need to be and when you need to jump.
Yes. Yeah. Which is just a fundamentally frustrating thing that probably shouldn't have ever been done.
Right. It should have been raised as an issue in the development of the first game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they just get silly with nitro blocks in this.
Yeah, yeah. This is kind of the first nitro block challenge going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, this sucks. Moves on to Crash Crush, which is a forest biome. This is an escape level, another boulder. And this is the first electric gate you have to slide under.
Yes. These span the entire width of the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard to know when to slide because the gate's in my way. Like, I don't know exactly how close I am to it. Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Something else that I was never really able to master. So if you're doing a run and then you do the slide, okay, cool. You finish the move, but no matter what I did, like no matter when I let go of the slide button, Crash would still kind of go into a slow crawl at the end of it.
Yes.
Which would take away my momentum, and that is a problem when you have a boulder barreling down on you, or a barrel bouldering down on you.
Yeah. This is a real Metal Gear Solid 2 issue.
Yeah.
Like I'm accidentally crawling. But other than that, it's a typical, being chased by a boulder kind of sitch.
Yeah.
At some point, Crash should question why this keeps happening to him.
Maybe the problem's me.
Yeah, like who's the common denominator here, you fucking idiot? So the next level, the Eel Deal, which is a sewer level. This is the first new biome they've introduced.
Hell yeah, new biome.
New biome. It's not a great biome.
No.
These are tubes. And the kind of big gimmick here is there are sections of water that are flooded with electric eels that turn on and off. So you can be in the water when they're off. When they turn on, it makes the water deadly.
Yeah.
Like an electric eel might.
Yeah. So oftentimes I would just barely graze the water, or I would be standing on a temporary platform in it, and it would sink right at the last moment to where it would kill me and stuff like that. And the water slows you down when you're in it too. It just ended up being just a thing that the feel precluded me from really kind of engaging with and enjoying. Yeah. You got new enemies here, because you're in kind of this more man-made environment. You've got these mechanical, like magnet mice that move in circles. More problematically, you've got these rats, I suppose, that come shooting down the corridor at you.
Yeah.
And they always make an appearance around corners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a really weird kind of old school, just learning how to do this vibe to some of these traps.
Yeah.
I feel like. I feel like that specific thing, like we have this enemy that moves really quickly. And, as a game design thing, you're like, how do we make these as challenging as possible? And kind of going with the first answer without really considering this needs more Nintendo DNA, I guess.
Yeah.
Is my way of saying it. Like, I feel like Nintendo would not kind of do that as a matter of course, even though that does happen in like Ocarina of Time. There are like those, ice platforms that come from off camera.
Yeah.
But it's that was them adapting an enemy from a 2D game more than anything. Like here, it just had this feeling of like going to the final kind of unfair hidden information endpoint early.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've dealt with these things. This should be several warp rooms later.
Yeah. And the only way that they escalate it is to just throw more of them at you while you're dealing with other stuff.
Yeah. Very frustrating.
Yeah.
You get to the end of this and you drop a level deeper and get to this segment where you're hanging from a grating. So this is one of Crash's moves. What this basically does is take away your jump. You just have to avoid enemies that move in patterns.
Yeah.
Without jumping.
Yep. It's like floating mines or whatever as you monkey bars down the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The boss for this warp room is the Komodo brothers. I do not know why they are Arabian themed, but here we are. They're like in a
themed Komodo dragons.
They're like in a palace harem. It's like you're covered in curtains and pillows, and they both have one of them has scimitars. They're dressed like sultans. It's strange.
Yeah. When you're designing a mascot platformer, the entire world is your oyster in terms of theming. Like you just choose. Like what if culture?
Yeah.
I actually kind of like this boss. It's very simple.
Yes.
The one who has scimitars stays in the middle. He throws scimitars at you. The other one starts spinning. You have to avoid him until he stops, and then you spin attack him into his bigger brother. And that's fine.
Yeah. No, it's real simple. It speeds up. So, he throws, the center one throws scimitars at you more quickly and for a longer time in between the vulnerability stages. But yeah, it's fun knocking the two of them together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Relatively fun.
Simple enough.
This moves us on to Warp Room 3. That starts off with plant food.
Yeah. It's another forest. It's another river.
Oh, hey.
River forest ruin thing, and it's just mostly built around these Venus flytraps. And like the thing here is, what you end up doing is like you're given two paths. You've got your water you've got your rocket surfboard on the left, and you have like a walkway that is covered with the plants on the right. If you think, oh, I'm just going to hop on the rocket board, no, you cannot do that, because you're going to get to these little choke points where the fly traps are going to get a snap at you and kill you. Mm-hmm. You have to go all the way along the path, kill the flowers, and then come back and take the jet board as you have cleared the way for yourself.
It's kind of wild how much backtracking there is in this game for a game that is essentially just hallways.
Yes, for a game
every time there is a diverticula, you always have to backtrack all the way back, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and reading like what you have to do for some of the challenges to get all the crates and stuff is ridiculous. Like backtracking all the way to the beginning from the end after you hit the the block that will blow up all the nitro. Yeah.
Yep. Next level is Sewer or Later, which is a real stretch. This is a sewer stage, and this introduces these hanging flamethrower fellas.
Yeah.
So they're guys with flamethrowers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, military technology. Granada. 1978.
Band of Brothers.
Yep. Band of Brothers. Semper Fi. And then there's also these rolling barrel traps and these spinning fan traps where you have to hit enemies in them to break one of the blades of the fan to create a big enough gap to get through.
Yeah. And like whenever you get to one of these spinning fans, it will just drop a never ending supply of magnet mice at you to spin and fling it into there. So there's no reason not to just blow up all of the fan blades so it can't kill you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of my strategy for this was to not hang around very long.
Yeah. Keep moving.
Because I would die, a lot of times if I took things slowly, and a lot of times the proper way was just to kind of fucking YOLO it. Mm-hmm. Which is really difficult because it's a game that's very hard to sight read.
Yeah.
But for these things, like just doing one of the mice and not hanging around for the other mice to kill me was my strategy.
Yeah.
Because the longer I stayed near the fan, the more likely I was to make a dumb mistake.
Yes. Yeah. Next stage here is Bear Down. Bear down for midterms.
Yeah. bear down like Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
Sticking with the military theme.
Yeah.
This one. It's another bear riding level.
It's a bear riding level. The only new hazard here, in addition to just throwing more of everything at you, they add these humans who stand on the other side of the level, and they raise these big barricades, raise and lower them. So you've got to work your timing around. This is something where your dash ends up working because you'll want to get under it before they drop it on you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was very surprised when they introduced humans.
Yeah.
And there are humans in this world, huh?
Yeah, they're like, and they like all of the humans. They look like the skinny Far Side characters as opposed to the fat Far Side characters.
Yes, or Far Side explorers. Yeah, and I was like, at some point, does Crash have does he go full Sonic? Like, is there like him with a human girlfriend and stuff eventually?
His heart belongs to Coco.
His sister.
Yeah,
his sister wife.
Expand your mind, broaden your horizons, man.
I know. It's stop living in the past. I was talking to somebody and we were talking about we were bemoaning. I was talking to my friend Derek and we were bemoaning how porn is now incest all the time.
Yeah.
And I was trying to say that I support incest being a taboo, but I ended up saying something like I'm into the taboo of incest.
Ooh.
And just really misphrased it. And he's like, wait, what? And I was like, oh, wait.
Well, and then it sounds like you're covering yourself. Like, no, it's when you make that face, I'm joking.
Yeah. Like my shirt about not being into incest raises a lot of questions about they're already answered by my shirt. But I meant that into it as a taboo.
Yeah.
So I don't want Crash to fuck Coco.
No. I mean, it'd be my preference, but they're adults. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, it's also, there's also is he cognizant enough to give consent?
I think Crash is a ward of the state.
Yeah, I don't think Crash can give consent.
Yeah.
Like I think that there's a lot of, it'd be like, it's like, but then it's like, is it moral to fuck a plant? You know, there's a lot of ethical issues that come through when you think about this stuff. And that's the service we aim to provide on Joke Week on Duckfeed.tv.
Joke Week from the Cool Zone. Yeah.
Yep.
Jesus.
So where are we? Road to Ruin?
Yeah, I think so.
Ruin. Hey, look, it's our last biome until the end, until the space biome.
Yeah. The nighttime sky ruin kind of things. Yeah.
Yep. With more Indiana Jones stuff, like more flame belching traps and moving walkways and stuff. These are primarily focused on platforming.
Yeah.
And kind of timing platforming things.
Also, these levels end up being very long.
It's really weird. Yeah. Like they're the longest levels in the game.
Yeah. But you got these like rats or possums or whatever that mostly just move left and right. But the main thing here that took me a while to figure out were these lizards. So I was like, how the fuck do I take out these lizards? No matter what I do, I keep on dying to them. This was the first enemy that like really required you to slide into it.
Yeah. Which is a signaling failure.
Right.
You know, on behalf of the game. Like I just avoided them generally because I couldn't figure out how to kill them and I assumed I could not kill them.
Right.
So I just kind of pushed past. The next level is Unbearable.
You got that right.
Yeah, it's 2 bear buns in 1 warp room. And this is an escape level where you get chased by a polar bear. So now the tables have turned. And rather than Crash riding a polar bear, he has become the victim of a polar bear chase.
Yes. This polar bear chasing you from the background through just a shitload of nitro.
Yep. He left all this dynamite, this one Dutch dynamite around.
Yeah. Also, you've got these it's like picket fencing that you have to spin through or slide through in order to break.
I'm embarrassed to say this. This was the moment where I realized, oh, this is a Tasmanian Devil ripoff. Was because I broke through, I spun through the wall and created a little hole.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's a Tasmanian Devil.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. You know, it's all from down under. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like an idiot, like figuring out. I was like, I spent so long thinking this was a Sonic ripoff that I didn't even think about Looney Tunes.
It's everything. It incorporates all of the elements of our rich cultural stew.
Yeah, the world is your oyster when you're making a mascot platformer. So this is probably my least favorite boss in the game.
Yeah,
Tiny. Tiny Tiger, which I was singing the Tim and Eric Tiny Tiger song during this because
of course
his name is Tiny Tiger.
Yeah,
which I like. But I find this annoying.
So the thing about this, to me, is that I fell off of the platforms. Like I misjudged the distance on the jumps. And it felt like that shouldn't have been in the cards for what you were trying to do here.
It would have been fine to have a wall.
Yeah.
Around this. Like I fell off the edge a lot too. And it's just, the idea is that certain platforms will turn red, which will fall. Tiny Tiger is chasing you and you want him to be on a red platform so he falls.
Yes.
And then
that's fine.
You know,
I'm good with that. Like that's, you're taking advantage of his like limited situational awareness. So you're trying to get him trapped on stuff. And it gives you it gives you enough of a signal, like when a platform is about to jump. But like the empty space between the platforms ended up being my bane here.
It was, making the jumps between them. It ends up being a little bit like a 2D Cubert.
Yeah.
In a weird way, like in a way that I didn't particularly care for. I also want to point out, like I read the TV tropes for this game last night, that in the like fridge horror section for Crash 2,
okay,
is that Tiny's health bar goes down as he's falling. So it's literally his fear of falling that's killing him. And some troper thought that was, the kind of thing that when you first read it, it's not horrific. But then later, when you're looking in the fridge trying to get a snack, you're like, "Oh my god, that's fucking terrifying!" Tiny Tiger. I
feel so awful for what I did to Tiny.
Yeah, Tiny Tiger. Like Tiny Tiger had such a rough time. I feel so bad for him. How scary would it be to be scared of falling? I end up looking at a lot of TV tropes because it's before bed and I can't handle anything more challenging in terms of reading sometimes. And every once in a while I close it in disgust. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes wild mass guessing leaks from its quarantine. Yeah.
Yeah. 100% pure high octane nightmare fuel. How
a tiger is scared of falling.
Yep. I lost my mind. This moves us on to Warp Room 4. starting with hanging out. There's a real nondescript title.
Yeah, I don't know what this is like. It feels like a description of the flamethrower guys because they hang from the ceiling.
They do hang from the ceiling. And do you hang from the ceiling at this point? At some point, I think you.
Maybe. Oh yeah, maybe. Like they, the sewer biome is where you get the monkey bars that you run on.
It will surprise people to learn that these stages really do run together.
Yeah.
The fact that they're going between 6 different biomes doesn't help.
No. But that's really this is just a long sewer level. Just like digging it is, well, no, it's not just a long forest level because it introduces some new stuff actually.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a forest level. Now the plants, different kind of plants will shoot proximity grenades at you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of close the different distance. And there are beehives. So bees spawn, and they don't immediately aggro on you.
Mm-hmm.
They will wait a little while and then chase you.
Yes.
So you have to kind of wait for them to catch up and then either attack them, which is really difficult because they, go quick,
mm-hmm.
or you have to stand on this soft ground. And if you, I think you have to belly flop. Or no, you
spin. Yeah.
You spin. Yeah. Just to burrow into the underground. And then you were like tunnel
mm-hmm.
through places to make the bees leave you alone.
Yeah. Literally like Taz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Very Taz-like. Bees.
Or no, it's Bugs Bunny who does the burrowing under the stuff. So it took the wrong turn in Albuquerque.
As well, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm mostly familiar with Taz from Slippers.
I don't know what any of those. Oh, the garment.
The Tasmanian devil slippers that one would buy at a.
The way you said that made it sound like a cartoon.
Oh yeah,
like tune in at 6:30 for Slippers. Fuck, dude.
Why are you watching a show called Slippers?
Yeah, what are you Slippers for?
Slippers isn't
Slippers
for you,
Cole. Slip dippers on patrol.
Slip dippers. Oh fuck.
So, and then when you're underground, though, there's like little Mario men who
Yeah.
will run around and try to smash you with their mallets while
they're actionably dressed like Mario, and they've got mallets.
Well, it's this game trying to stick it to.
Oh yeah,
to Mario.
Your protagonist is our bit enemy. Yeah.
Yeah. You designed video games. You're a titan of design.
The bees will factor in more later on. Like the thing about them is you've got to deal with them eventually because they will outrun you.
Yeah, and they're the only enemy that chases you because enemies tend to, like those penguins that just go back and forth. It's not like they care once you go past them.
They stick to their patterns. Yeah.
Yeah. This takes us into Cold Hard Crash,
I hate
which
this
is
level.
this sucks. It's extremely long.
Yeah. I had to do so many run-ups of this.
Yep. And this is the one where they mix the pistons.
Mm-hmm. The mixed piston, Private Eye.
See me guest starring on Slippers. So this is like really long. You're switching between side-scrolling and 3D through here. And these are pistons traps that show up that only slam down when you're near.
Right.
Which would be fine because you fake them out, but they're next to pistons that are timed.
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes the timing very complicated.
Yep. Also complicated is your sliding distance. You don't want to slide too far because oftentimes after these paired rhythm pistons and proximity pistons, right after them, they will put icicles that will drop and damage you.
Yeah. I know we keep harping on this, but keep in mind, this is the first time they've introduced this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is such a basic, Nintendo lesson. Like, you introduce the first hazard with no consequence.
Right.
And you ramp this shit up, but Crash doesn't do that. It feels like a lot of the hazards are introduced as if they were like the third or fourth time they would appear in a better platformer. And this is one of them where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I played video games before.
Yeah.
But I am not building on a set of skills that I've previously established and combining like constituent experiences to, tackle these hazards when they're together. I'm instead just being introduced to all the hazards together.
Right.
It's like somebody's first food is a cheeseburger. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
I don't know what any of these elements are.
So I can touch the brown part on the outside, but I can't touch the darker brown part of the inside. What?
Yeah. Exactly. Like there's what on the lettuce? This takes a very long time. We're just going to scoot past it because that's what it introduces, but that's the gimmick, is that it's long and hard.
Is this the one that ends with like the lumberjack? There was one of them. So like I made the notes on this by taking screenshots as I was playing, because I didn't feel like, jotting stuff down in bed. So like when I saw something, took a screenshot of it and I could reconstruct it later to make the notes. But I got past, like, one of these levels has like a little mini boss at the end, who does something, but I can't remember if this is the one.
Yeah, I don't recall which level that is. I know what you're talking about, but I do not remember which one it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's not much of a hazard because, I got past it before I could, take a screenshot, but.
Yeah. And it's just, it's lumberjacks.
Yeah.
I can take out a lumberjack. Who gives a shit? I'm not worried about a lumberjack.
Look at me.
Yeah, I'm a lumberjack. Sure. This moves on to Ruination, which is more ruins.
Yeah. The level's getting too long at this point is my one of my chief complaints.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is more tricky temporary platforms, very long. And this introduces monkeys who jump between the temporary platforms. So it's just complicating that rhythm.
Yeah. And this is especially messing up the areas where you're trying to platform, between these rotating tiki heads that will belch flame. And the actual safe zone where the flame stops hurting is very undefined. Like, they do not do the Demon Souls thing of like, this part of the pavement is charred, so not to walk there. Yeah. With this, it's just like, no, you just kind of have to understand where the invisible hurt box on the fire is going to end. Yeah, and that's frustrating. Yeah. And then there are also these really weird, like, wobbly platforms that take advantage of like the 2.5D thing where they go like real like close to you and then far away. And that's can't just describe it. You can't just stand on top of them because they're tilted, so you have to like constantly be nudging yourself towards the center of them as they rotate.
Difficult.
Yes. Yep. You get to the lives exploit level here. Behaving.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be behaving, but I like behaving.
Well, because that's how it's written. It's written as behaving.
Yeah. I just really like the idea of somebody behaving.
Oh, behave.
How are you been passing the day? What have you been doing lately? Oh, I don't know. Light reading, behaving.
You took a beekeeping? No, behaving.
No. I if you love something, set it free.
I own a certificate that says there are bees somewhere.
I've hidden a series of bees in this house. So this is a very long outdoor forest level that is full of bees. Yeah. If you like that bee mechanic, go be crazy.
Boy, oh boy. And it kind of like ultimately ends up being just another race away from the screen a little bit because you got those bees that are going to kind of constantly be on your tail. This is the level, so I started running out of lives a lot in the middle of these. So I thought, fuck, I will just take 5 minutes and do a life exploit, to get 99 lives. So I don't have to, continue from the beginning again. This is the level where you can do like a dash spin into, the respawning bees to max out your lives for the the final run.
Yep.
Yeah. So around this time is when Coco is able to get through and say, "Hey, Crash, you idiot! Cortex and N-Gen are using you, so you gotta take the fight to them." Yeah, they didn't stop being bad guys. I know you're pre-verbal, Crash, but you're gonna need to, do something about this, and that is why the boss fight here is N-Gen, who's like the little like half mechanical Igor.
Yeah. Yep. So he's on a flying mech, and this again, it's like an interface fuck around thing. Like, this game can be a consistent camera,
right?
So you're on this platform in the foreground, he's in the background, and instead of for the first time in the game, now when you spin, you throw a wampa fruit,
right? And the wampa fruit kind of flies back toward the vanishing point. Yeah.
And, kind of like the M-boss of like Yoshi's Island or something, you have to hit the weak spot, which are weapons he's about to fire. So I actually was okay with this as a level, you know, as a mechanic, it was frustrating that it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And they don't really like, I don't know, like there's some real bad teaching in this game.
Yeah. Well, they also like don't do a lot interesting with it. It's just kind of like, okay, you need to attack him right when he's about to attack you. So you're, you know, kind of judging risk and reward versus, you know, dodging versus taking the shot. You know, but that's like, that's real basic when it comes to like boss design. Also, this is the first boss that is not really a puzzle, you know?
Yeah.
This feels like a regular boss fight from something else. Yeah.
Yeah. Which doesn't really happen.
Right.
So. This moves on to our final warp room 5. There are secret levels and stuff. We're not talking about them.
Right.
You know, that you find through warps and other levels and stuff.
There's like alternate exits that you can get to as well, like through death courses and stuff.
Yes, and some of them are new levels. Some of them are like remixed harder versions of old levels.
Yeah.
I just want to, you know, acknowledge their existence.
Yes.
Yeah. So this starts with piston it away, which is pissing it away.
Yes. Children
pissing it away. And this is our final new biome.
Yep.
I believe.
Well, no, like you've got the space tunnels later too.
Yeah, space tunnels. This is a side-scrolling factory that Cortex owns now that we know that he's the bad guy.
Yes. Everything is labeled with his personal monogram. He's got in all over everything. Yeah, and this is all side scrolling, which is like a nice change of pace, actually, even with the imprecision of the depth that happens here.
Yeah. There are these walker robots that have these rings around their body that are harm boxes that are hot, and octopus robots that move their arms to make them either vulnerable from the side or above. So as opposed to just kind of choosing. Yeah. You now get to,
Well, no, I mean, like, so it changes state.
Switch.
Yeah. So it's like,
you don't just get to like choose. You don't get to just decide or like figure out what the weakness is.
Yeah.
You now have to kind of evaluate in the moment.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's going to walk back and forth. It's going to do this at like a little phase interval. Like, what is going to be the most advantageous to hit it with, and wait for it to be vulnerable in the way you want to attack. Yeah. Like weirdly, that is a good enemy for them to bring in. It's kind of a shame really they brought it in that late. Yeah.
Yeah. It makes sense to me again in those, you know, that Nintendo design philosophy of like introduce and then complicate. Would have made a lot of sense for these guys to end up being like Warp Room 3. Yeah. Because they're not that hard. They're just like slightly more interesting than like that piston horse shit.
Yes.
You know? There are humans now who have shields who will try and knock you off of these platforms. You kind of have to American Gladiators.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, push them off.
And they pretty much exist to push you either into dead drops or into pistons. Like they are on the other side of hazards. Yeah. Yep. But like, I don't know, it's not a bad level. There's something about like this is a good mix of things for me, and like with the way that the rest of this warp room plays out, it kind of feels like the proper final exam, and everything else is a little bit of just kind of like a fucking around kind of thing, with the exception of spaced out. So like piston it away and spaced out end up being the satisfying conclusions to the mechanics here. Yep,
agreed. Next level is Rock It, which is the first jetpack stage. The jetpack doesn't feel good.
No. It's a little bit like the jet board, where like you would think, okay, I'm gonna be rocketing on this. No, it's actually like really like just really slow and non-responsive. Actually, you're gonna be doing a lot of feathering.
Yes. Yeah. Bummer. Like slow on down. Yeah. Through this, and you're basically just avoiding hazards like moving traps. Sometimes there are scientists that you have to hit and knock into these flame shields to knock out the flame shields and proceed.
This feels like a little bit of an easy. It's an easy concession to get you to learn this last minute superpower that Crash has. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not really much in the way of hazards that can kill you. It's just about like figuring out the way that this controls.
Yeah. Yep. And this moves us on to Night Fight.
Yeah, weird. Just weird that you end up like you're in this industrial place and then boom, we're going to go back to the forest. Except this time it's dark. It's nighttime, and you have to like run by these fireflies who will hang around you for a little bit and give you some limited light to light up mostly these fuck you pitfalls they're going to be running. But you've got to really race to get to the next fireflies that are going to hover around you, because otherwise, if you dally, you'll be left in the dark.
Yeah. I think I've decided I don't like this as a mechanic.
Yeah.
In like Symphony of the Night or Mega Man.
Mm-hmm.
Anything like that.
I remember it being a problem in Owlboy as well.
Yeah. I think I've decided that I don't think this is that interesting of a place to play in. Mm-hmm. Like hiding information on this level. Mm-hmm. Seeing, the game, like seeing platforms. Yeah. Is not that interesting. Right. To me. And this one has lots of blind falls. Mm-hmm. Move over to Pack Attack, which is another jetpack level. This one's a lot more complicated. Mm-hmm. And this adds these new red mines that float that arrange themselves in circles and expand and contract. Right. For you to zip through the middle when they're expanded and not when they're contracted. Yeah.
And these often play very poorly with another hazard that they add in, which are these big loose electrical cables that flail up and down across the entire width of the stage. Again, it was very hard. I mean, it sounds like I'm inept. It sounds like I don't know how to play video games, but like, I don't know. I kind of do. But like, it was really hard to tell like when these things would hurt you and when they wouldn't. It would feel like I was just kind of just being punished for being next to it as opposed to being punished for touching it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not about being inept. It's about, again, the imprecision of the perspective.
Yeah.
If this were a 2D thing with pixels, you would know exactly when you would be hurt.
Yes.
Most likely. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. The penultimate stage is called Spaced Out, which is pretty similar to Piston It Away. It's a little bit more complicated, longer runs of Piston, but again, we're in the Cortex factory. Relives. And this leads us into the boss fight with Cortex, which is a chase boss fight in 3D with the jetpack. He's fleeing down this space tunnel made of rings where there are asteroids and mines, and you have to catch up with him and spin attack him 3 times to kill him. It is surprisingly easy.
Yes.
I found. I don't know, how universal that was, but I did not have a problem with this. I died once, but then I was like, I think I got it the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't do much to defend himself, and he's also really easy to catch up with. So I don't know if they were trying to do like, Dr. Wily is super easy to kill when he doesn't have his machinery. I don't know if this is intentional or not.
They're trying to show how he had fallen.
the tragic dignity.
The tragic dignity.
Dr. Neocortex.
When Naughty Dog made this, they were like, we need to make sure all enemies have a quiet dignity to them. This is the least dignified game I've ever played in my life.
Look how gigantic his head is. This tiny little body.
No neck. Jorts can't read. Like there's no dignity to this at all.
No neck. Jorts can't read. Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose.
And then you get the ending. If you did like us and you got the bad ending, it ends with Crash and his sister laying down and her, like, I think the last line, because I played this a while ago. I started getting ahead on work because Tactics Ogre was long. And I think that she's like, but that Cortex Vortex is still up there. And then just credits. Like it ends with just literally like, we're still in trouble. And then if you do the good ending where the other evil scientist takes out the vortex, you get to see it explode. Yeah, Embryo explodes the space station up above. And then it's gone for now until the third one where it becomes warped somehow. And thus concludes our first and last Crash Bandicoot game on the Duckfeed.tv network.
Yeah, I can't see us. I don't know. Like, I can't see us doing another one. We already did Crash Bash on Abject Suffering, and I remember nothing about the episode. I think we may have talked about just how aesthetically unpleasing the games are and were.
Yeah.
But I
don't think that Crash 3 is going to change my opinion.
No.
I think this is going to be like a Dead Space thing where like there's going to be a huge rush of people like, oh, if only you'd played Crash 3.
Maybe.
Like, and there might be, but I don't trust it. Like, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I respectfully disagree.
Just because it feels like the value proposition, the thing that people love about these games is kind of the decision that's baked in that makes it unappealing to me, which is the camera angle, which is the nature of the challenge, which is ultimately the original and final sin of this, which is hiding information from you and punishing you for not having that information.
It's extremely like when you can't sight read a platformer, right? So like sight reading, like in music, where you're not like stopping, considering your decisions, it was impossible for me in this game to enter a flow state.
Yeah.
And in a good platformer, even in good platformers, I'm not crazy about. Like there were moments in Celeste where I entered a flow state.
Yes.
Where the controller disappeared. My avatar was just doing exactly what I wanted, and it felt pretty cool. You know, that would happen. And in platformers I really love, I enter that, like, the correspondence of me really loving that is how easy it is for me to get into that a lot of the time. You know, like, I'm not a big platformer guy. Like, that's not my genre. But in just traditional 2D platformers, getting that flow state is very important to me.
Yeah.
One-to-one correspondence with sight reading. And I think that if you make a game where the idea is that we're going to give you information at the last minute, we're going to make it hard for you to see the stage, or very much of the stage at one time, that is the thing you're interrupting.
Yeah.
And it is just a prerequisite for me to dig a platformer. Like, I have to be able to get into that mode.
Yeah.
You know, I like being careful in games. I can get down with being careful in a platformer as well. But in this one, there are so many situations in which I was making choices with no information that at that point, it's just, you know, how many fingers, you know, what number am I thinking of? Like you said, and that's just rotten design to me.
Yeah.
And it makes me very unhappy and not have fun.
Combine that with, you know, the imprecision, you know, things that we talked about, you know, just when you would be trying to jump over something and you just kind of nick it and then boom, you're dead. Or trying to jump across a gap that looks like you should maybe be able to make it, but because of the irregularity that is not just visual, but is kind of built into the wireframe, you know, failing just lots of times where, you know, it sounds like a poor craftsman blaming his tools or whatever. You fail when it ought not have been your fault. And it starts feeling like this is not good faith difficulty.
Yeah. Yep. It feels bad to fail and to fail and not have it be your fault. That's real classic video game stuff. Like, you know, there's a part, again, contrasting this with Celeste, because they're both difficult platformers. There's another thing that's kind of necessary for enjoying difficulty, I find, is for those deaths to stop stinging. Yeah. Like, you have to get to the point where you don't mind the deaths, right? In the best Souls games, and my best Souls games experiences, I get to that point. Like, I know what I can do differently. I have all the information. I don't mind the deaths. I just never got to that point. Like, every time I died in this, I ended up feeling like,
it's still irritated me.
Little sting of, activation. You know, it's not quite anxiety. It's not quite. Like,
it's just a little squirt of cortisol.
Yeah, tiny cortisquirt. You know, and it was a bummer. Like, that sucks, man. I just I could not get into it. So I'm happy to leave this in the past of my past, and you know,
what it did make me want to do was go and play Super Mario 3D Land and World. Actually,
yeah,
because they kind of have a bit of a similar, you know, not like as extreme of a camera angle, but like it gives you just, you know, like a different kind of 3D platforming that is like a little diorama style thing. Yeah, and I think it is far more successful.
I love those games.
Yeah, those are great.
Like Cat Mario is 1000% a Mario we will do on the show at some point.
Yes,
like that will be very fun. So it's just this isn't there to me. Just intense. This ain't it.
Yeah,
feelings. You know. So not trying to take anything away from anybody who digs that.
No. And this is, and it's an important series, as we talk about this. Like, I think that throw this a little bit in as a companion with Jumping Flash, to a certain extent, in kind of early experiments in 3D and platforming and stuff. I think we are obviously very, we are obviously, we're in favor of Jumping Flash and not this, but look at these as, historical examinations.
Like, even when I liked Jumping Flash a lot, when I'm reaching for a 3D platformer, I'm not necessarily reaching for Jumping Flash.
No.
Like, Jumping Flash, this is a weird thing where not only did I not have have very much fun, I also don't have very much respect for it.
Yeah.
Which matters. Like, just like coming away from something and I had respect for Celeste, but also didn't like it that much. This, I don't really have respect for it either.
Yeah.
So not the same thing as not having respect for people who dig it.
Same.
But just not for me.
Yeah.
If you have thoughts about Crash Bandicoot 2, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact by the 15th of June.
Yes. We are looking for thoughts about all of June's games, such as this, such as Dreamfall: The Longest Journey, or Castlevania: Order of Ecclesia, which is a wonderful delight.
Yeah, that's the palate cleanser this month. In addition, during that episode, we will answer your questions and such. If you're a patron, you get to ask us questions as a patron. You can go to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv to join us. $5 gets you to that question tier, as well as get you episodes early and a bunch of bonus stuff.
Yeah.
We've recently made a change to the Patreon. Starting July 1st, we have changed the cost of executive producing an episode.
Yes.
So if you want to choose a game for us to do, it now costs $300 and not $150. We wrote a post about this as to why this is not a cash grab. The Patreon's doing well, like, not as a brag thing. It just happens to be doing well.
Yeah.
This is because we are booked out through the rest of this year.
Right.
Essentially, like, there are a couple picks that have not ended up on the schedule yet. I think once I insert those, we will literally be booked.
Yes.
For this year, and we are not comfortable being booked out 6 months in advance, both because we have no maneuverability and because we don't want people to be like, hey, you signed up for this thing, you don't actually get your benefit for this long.
Yeah.
So we need to slow those down a little bit.
So yeah, go look at that post. It's under the announcements tag on the Patreon to see a little bit more of our reasoning. But ultimately, it just comes down to, we're booked out. We're selling them too fast.
Yep, selling them too fast.
Which is a good problem.
Great problem to have. Yeah, we're not complaining. It's just it's just the reality. We gave everybody a big lead time for that. Like, we're not changing it for another month. So if you were saving up or planning to produce, do so. You still get in under the old price for another month.
Yeah.
We feel like 4 weeks of lead time is fair.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for information about Duckfest 2, Virtual Duckfest. That will happen very soon.
Yeah.
And ratings, reviews on Apple Podcast are very appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. Damn, man, you took it all.
I did. I was in a hurry because I had to pee.
Yes. All right. So
I'm going to piss my jorts.
Don't do that. So until next time, watch out for. Oh, that already hit you. You sure have really been looking out.
Yep. Suck it, dude.